congregation stand. Well, good afternoon. My name is Luke. I'm the unit chaplain here at the Battery. And on behalf of the 20th Independent Field Battery, I welcome you to Vimy Ridge Armory. It is a privilege for me, and it is a privilege for us to host the funeral for Colonel Jacobson. On behalf of the family, I would like to thank you each for your presence here today. It means so much to the family. Friends and family, today we gather to celebrate and to remember the life of Ronald Jacobson, beloved husband, father, brother, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, and as I learned, simply family and friends to many. Ron loved to gather with family and friends, to tell stories, to reminisce on times past, to enjoy a drink or two or more, to laugh till we cried, and to simply enjoy life with people. And friends, that is why we are here today. See, today we don't just gather because Ron has passed, but more importantly, we gather because Ron lived, and live he did. He lived life to the full, and today we gather to celebrate his life, because life is designed to be celebrated. If you knew Ron, you knew something about him that might have drove you a little bit crazy. His to-do list. He always started his day with a to-do list. He always had a to-do list for the kids, the grandkids, you name it. So I thought as we start today, I would start with a to-do list in honor of Ron. First, we gather to laugh and to remember. Today we are going to hear memories and stories, remembering that Ron loved to laugh and tell stories. So we remember his legacy by doing that today. Today we gather to mourn. No matter what age, death always seems too soon. And today we recognize that you can't replace people that you love. As the late Queen Elizabeth said, grief is the price you pay for love. And today we feel grief because we recognize how deeply we loved. And just as we name the grief, we also name gratitude. We gather with thanksgiving, thankful for Ron's 87 years of life. And finally, our last item on our to-do list today is to honor and recognize his legacy. We are here today because Ron's life mattered. His life made a difference in our lives. I loved how the family said it. One of Ron's mottos, always be honest and do what's right, not what you want. Those are words to live by. That is part of his legacy he leaves with us. So friends and family, laugh, mourn, be grateful, celebrate his legacy. That is our to-do list today. Let me begin with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, indeed we are grateful to gather together to remember and celebrate a good man. Your word says that nothing can separate us from your love, neither death nor life. And today we remember that before Ron was loved by us, he was loved and is continued to be loved by you. You are the creator and sustainer of life and of love. So I pray that you would bless us today. I thank you for Ron and all the memories and stories and lessons that he gave us in which you remember today. In thankfulness we pray. Amen. I'll invite Warrant Officer Glenn Miller forward to deliver the eulogy. Ronald Allen Jacobson led a life devoted to his family, his country, and community. I'm honored by the family to have him give a short eulogy as his obituary and the program attest to his legacy of the life that was lived and his accomplishments. Ron is surrounded by his loving wife, Mariette, his son, John, who just met the other day, and his wife, Debbie, stepdaughter, Martine, partner, Jack, his brother, Doran and Annabelle, granddaughter, Tyler, Taylor, and Carson, grandsons, Jesse and Charlotte, Jared LeBlanc, and great-granddaughter, Poppy Jacobson, and many nieces and their partners. And as we are in the Veterans Week now, just wearing a poppy is an act of remembrance. I do remember, not too many years ago, having a poppy sent to me that was done by the family. And so that just is another simple act of remembrance for me to help remember Ron and his contributions. Ronald was born on November 7th, 1935 in Calgary. He was educated at Elbow Park, Regal Park, Central Intercollegiate Institute, and Mount Royal College. Attended the University of Alberta at Calgary and the University of Alberta in Edmonton and Calgary. Now at university, like many gunners, somehow we all end up playing hockey. And so he played in the Steam Hockey League and team that got recreated. It's known as the Cinnamon Bears. His family's going to talk about their connections, and I'm just going to talk about some of the military connections I had the chance to meet up with him over the years and learn more. Someone said I was in Ontario for an Indigenous ceremony, and someone asked me if I was rich. Young kid. I said, actually, I'm rich in culture, rich in friendship. You can't put a price on that. Ron came to Lethbridge in 1959 to practice law. Throughout southern Alberta, from Lethbridge to Fort Macleod offices as a barrister and a solicitor with emphasis on litigation. He also acted as an agent of Attorneys General of Canada in Alberta and in Lethbridge, agent and solicitor for the Minister of Motor Vehicles Accident Claims Act. Ron was appointed a judge, no doubt a highlight for his career. And that was done on the 1st of May, 1979. He was also appointed a deputy territorial judge of the Northwest Territories from 1981 to 83. And on November 7th, 2010, he was appointed a judge to the Provincial Court of Alberta. His legal career spanned over half a century. And I know that he also made a donation to some of his collection to the Galt Museum and Archives. And as a military historian, I know some of those are not available to a certain period of time in the future. And I look forward to what surprises might be there with a military connection. In 1958, he married Sonia Curry, who was a Canadian junior champion and world figure skater in Calgary in September 1958. Following his graduation in law from the University of Alberta in April 1959, the couple moved to Lethbridge. They were raising 3 children, John, Jill, and Ronald. All the family were involved in community activities. A trait no doubt they learned from Ron. And Sonia was named to the Lethbridge Centennial Sports Hall of Fame for her figure skating achievements as a skater, coach, and builder. Sadly, Sonia, Jill, and Ronald died as a result of a tragic fire on November 21st, 1981. Ron remarried in December 14, 1985 to Marianne, who was at that time the Assistant Executive Director of the Canadian Institute for the Administration of Justice. In 1989, she received her Bachelor of Education degree majoring in French from the University of Lethbridge. And she'd been a major factor in many of Ronald's achievements. And as we sit here in the armories, we know about the soldiers, we know about military families, and as Ron had a military career, families are very important to a soldier's success over their career. So I'd like to thank the family for their contributions over the years to help him shape his military career, because you are part of that legacy and part of his success. Now I'm just going to talk briefly about some primary instances I had of Ron, but I know he had 3 major interests: continuing his legal and judicial education and advocacy, the Canadian Armed Forces, especially the artillery in the community. We're here home to the Vimy Ridge Armory, and it was here in Lethbridge that the father of the artillery, General Stewart, would go on to kind of help shape his career. As a young officer, he had a chance to speak with him, sometimes some good lessons, sometimes some bad ones. I remember he talking about in the mess dinners how they enjoyed it. And so without the expertise, the corporate knowledge, and the guidance of General Stewart and other officers of the time, he wouldn't have achieved as much success as he did. I'm sure they all helped shape his own success. And I know the family will contribute to their own contributions from their lenses. And as part of the education for justice, in the 93rd Battery of Fort McLeod, he was the guy in charge, the battery commander. At those times, he had some Indigenous soldiers under his command. And they were kind of caught hiding and stashing away some booze in the barracks. Because at that time, under the Indian Act, they weren't allowed in facilities that served alcohol. So he marched them into his office and he had a chat. I wonder what that chat sounded like. And nobody, you're all performing that possible chat in your own mind. But he said basically this: you're good enough to serve with us, you're good enough to drink with us. So don't stash anymore. Be responsible. If you're drunk, don't cry. And he would later go on to champion the changes to the Indian Act in some way, shape, or form. I never really got to know all the instances, but I know that he helped shape that so they could drink alcohol. So he raised it right to the government level. As a young officer, he also had the opportunity, as I said, to know Brigadier General John Smith Stewart, the father of artillery here in Alberta. And that general had the distinction, because again, Veterans Week, on November 11th, he gave the general salute on November 11th, but his was unique. He made history. His general salute was given to General Curry on November 11th, 1918, in the city of Mons in Belgium, when the war ended. General Stewart also signed a guest book of the city of Mons known as the Golden Book. Ron went back many years later and he wanted to see the Golden Book of General Stewart's signature. It's also on my bucket list. But also, Ron went on to make history in his own right.
through the military, serving as the Colonel Commandant of all the artillery. Now, when I came to Lethbridge, I knew we had a Colonel Commandant for all the artillery. What I didn't know was reserve units also had honorary colonels or honorary lieutenant colonels based on the size of the unit. And so at that time, Mayor Carpenter was the honorary colonel, and Senator Joyce Berger was the lieutenant colonel. And I was just new, and I asked, who's that old lady over there? Because when I joined, women weren't allowed in the artillery. So I'm trying to figure out where she came from. I would have heard of her. So I learned that she is an honorary colonel. Her daytime job was a senator. Put that aside, she was an honorary lieutenant colonel. So I went over and said hi. Unfortunately, a few of the young gunners didn't want to come say hi to her because she was a senator. But she's also your colonel. She's part of your military family. You don't have a choice, follow me. So we went for an introduction. But Ron, as a reserve soldier, was the first time he represented all of the gunners of the Royal Regiment of Canadian Artillery. And he did a term for 3 years, and that saw him going across Canada to visit many of the artillery units and overseas to learn a lot more about the artillery. His attendance at mess dinners was always an enjoyment for me. Ron also had, as you'll see in the slideshow later on, and in his obituary, a youthful smile. And it didn't matter how old that person was. I had a chance to look at the whole slideshow the other day, and what struck me, just a little kid at heart. Although he was a judge, when he donated his artifacts and legacy to the Galt Museum, the curator said, no, he's just a down-to-earth guy. Some people may think he's a colonel or a judge and be intimidated by that. I was never intimidated. I just treated him as an adult friend, and someone I could learn. And I enjoyed our visits at home and in the different stages of care. And I keep him up to date with some of the things I was doing. Ron had the distinction and along with Mariette, to learn about the last gun to fire in World War I, which actually came out of a Lethbridge unit, the 39th Battery. And we did a bronze statue if you were in the exhibition grounds, in the new agri-food hub. There's an 8-foot bronze statue with 6 horses towing a gun. And Ron came out to that day. I never seen him with a younger face on his smile. So he was really a kid at heart that day. It was so good to be that, and I like to thank the family for bringing him, and he was able to come out on that particular day. But she and Ron also came here to the Armory to listen to a grade 6 student talk about that last gun as a project for Historical Canada. And she was able to learn some more information that's not found on Google, it's not found on the internet, it's not found in books. It's found in the corporate knowledge of soldiers. His medals meant a lot to him. And it was only recently we were able to get his, over time to get your medal, you have to add it to your mount of medals here. And so we were able to get that, and we shared that with him. Here are your medals, and again, a big smile, a very proud smile for those medals he earned. And so I'm so glad that he was able to see those medals before he passed on. The guns here up front are the type that are used by the militia today. And when they fire a shell, there's a brass casing that's scrap or recycled nowadays. It's a tradition in some units to use the brass casing as an urn. And I can't think of a more fitting send-off for Ron to be in that brass casing. So I'd like to thank the family for honoring me. I look forward to hearing what the kids have to say about Ron and his legacy. So Ron, in the artillery, after a mission is done, you'll hear as an order the end of mission. Your job is done for now. So Ron, end of mission, stand easy. Thank you.
Well, if there's one thing about Ron that most people knew, was that he loved his grandkids. Known as Papa to Taylor and Grandpa to Jesse, I'll invite Taylor up, followed by Jesse to share tributes to the grandfather.
So for those who don't know, my name's Taylor. I am the granddaughter of John. And today, as we gather to remember and celebrate the life of my beloved grandfather, I would like to share the profound impact that he had on my life and the lessons that I learned from him. So my grandpa, also known as Bubba, was not just a typical grandparent. He was a father figure to me. I had the privilege of living with my grandparents for nearly a year when I was younger, and I was at their house every day after school, all the way through high school. This unique bond allowed me to learn a great deal from him and experience cherished memories that will stay with me forever. One of the most valuable lessons that my grandpa taught me was the importance of strong work ethic. He led by example, and I watched him dedicate himself to a job helping people and making a difference in our community. He instilled in me the belief that when you're passionate about your career and genuinely care about people, your work becomes a source of purpose and fulfillment. Should have lots of water. But it wasn't just about work. My grandpa showed me the significance of being there for your family, of sharing quality time together. From our shared dinners, volunteer experiences, rounds of golf during the summer, to our coffee group brunches on Saturdays and church services on Sundays, he always prioritized family and community. One of the most cherished moments that I have with my Bubba was the time that we spent at our family cottage. We spent birthdays, Christmases, and enjoyed various activities together. I remember going skating with Bubba for the first time on the lake. I went hunting, sledding, dancing together at the town hall. We decorated birthday caps, sang songs. But what stood out most was the imaginative game of rabbits and the big bad wolf. I don't know if Jesse will remember. The game was simple, so Jesse and I, when we were young, we would go hide upstairs while Grandpa would run around the house hiding paper carrots for us to find. My grandpa, he played the role of the big bad wolf, and when he called down to us, we would excitedly hop around the house and try to avoid him catching us, just like rabbits would. I remember always being so excited to try and run past him. It was a little rush of danger, but we always managed to get past him. As a 5-year-old, I remember thinking either I'm really fast or Bubba's really slow because Jesse and I keep winning. But yeah, Bubba, he could have easily just let us entertain ourselves. He could have let us watch TV, but he chose to be the ultimate grandpa. He chased us around the house, allowing us to believe that we were the fastest kids around. His playfulness and ability to make those moments so special are qualities that I truly love about him. As Glenn said, he really was a kid at heart. While he always had good intentions, Bubba and I didn't always see eye to eye. One of the things that stood out to me was the sometimes comical instances of certain life choices, including his vision for my future. Bubba pushed me in various directions, guiding me towards activities that he knew and loved, of course, as any grandparent would. But I found myself figure skating for years, just like Sonia had, playing piano, because that's what his mom did, and I even joined him on the hunting trip, despite being an animal-loving vegetarian. And while John and Jesse probably remember that experience a little bit differently, it was still an unforgettable outdoor adventure, but most of all, it kind of solidified my dietary choices, and I'm still vegetarian, so. But there was one piece of advice that he always offered with exceptional persistence: a dual career in law and the military. As someone who was already pursuing a degree in fine arts and education, his persistent military suggestion was always making me laugh. I remember the last time he brought it up, it was actually only a few months ago. And I had just moved to a new country to pursue a Master of Business. And he managed to take that and remind me again why I should join the military. So that was one life lesson that never quite found its way into my life, but certainly added a touch of humor to our conversations. My grandpa was a remarkable man. He touched the lives of many in our community. He dedicated himself to the church, and he showed genuine care and compassion to everyone he met. However, above all, to me, he was an exceptional grandpa. He was a mentor, a playmate, an inspiration, and he taught me the value of hard work, family, and community. I am immensely grateful for all the time that I had with him, and I will never forget our special memories. So thank you all for being here to celebrate his remarkable life with us, and thanks for listening.
Wish I was as tall as Taylor. Thank you all for coming here today. Celebrating the life of my grandfather. My grandfather was an amazing mentor, role model. He was proud to be a Jacobson. The history, the heritage, the moral values, ethics, responsibilities we held by carrying our last name. Always to be honest and do what's right, not what you want. At the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and live with the person you are. He was very involved in my childhood. My fondest memories were the late. I would get to spend a couple of weeks each summer. I didn't have the privilege of living in Lethbridge, but each summer we would run over the same footprints and fingerprints at the lake as his children did. Days were spent on the boat, dinners around the dining room table, bedtime stories by the big man around the fire. 8 weeks ago, my grandfather became my great-grandfather. Charlotte and I had a baby girl named Poppy. Grandfather was very excited through the whole pregnancy. We would talk on the phone, FaceTime, send him pictures when he was finally a great-grandfather. Unfortunately, he passed before seeing Poppy in person. Regrets. I will cherish the hours we spent in the field hunting together. I learned from my father and my grandfather to hunt, the values of life, ethics, responsibilities we take on, and the privileges we had to enjoy these times together. He made sure he was there for the big moments, not only birthdays and events, but when I shot my first bird, it was actually with his mother's shotgun, which is my great-grandmother's double-barrel shotgun. It was a tradition. He loved to go bird hunting, ducks and pheasants specifically. Funny story. One morning, my grandfather, my dad, and I rode at a pond near the cottage that we had always hunted at. It was great for ducks and geese. The morning was slow, and there wasn't many ducks flying in, as you know, on a slow morning duck hunting. It's usually blue skies. At one point, my grandfather felt the urge to go to the bathroom. He unloaded his gun and left it safely by the duck line, and he had to go behind a big 50-foot tree. The gist of it is, you know, when his pants were down, that is when the geese started flying in. So the flock of geese flew into the duck decoy spread on the pond. My grandfather never had the chance to shoot a goose. And he always looked forward to getting a goose. And it was one thing that me and him shared in common, is we both never ended up shooting a goose. He ended up racing back to the duck line, but it was too late at that point. Another memory I'll always remember is he would include me in his trips. One trip he took to Pitcher Creek, that he had a court in Pitcher Creek. Everything was kind of normal. Great dinner, a glass of wine the night before, and I woke up at 2 in the morning and decided I was going to break out of the hotel room. He caught me breaking out of the hotel room. as I was down the hall in my underwear, and he had ran after me. He didn't realize that I was sleepwalking, so I always kept him on his toes that way. The next day, my grandmother and I went to the playground and played. Just another example of a great weekend or excursion with them. Whenever I came to visit my grandparents in Lethbridge, I would stay at the bedroom at the top of his house. Probably so I couldn't sneak out. The bedroom was adjacent to the laundry room, and the laundry room was full of my grandfather's dress clothes, judge clothes, black robes, white shirts. The laundry room was full of 8 to 10 of the same branded white shirt, ironed perfectly, hanging on the rack. The smell of crisp bleach starting off every fresh day. I'd like credit this to Mariette. I know he didn't use on laundry. To this day, I now wear the same white shirts. I love the same crisp smell of bleach, and I tell my wife that all the time. And that is why I start my day, and I do think about my grandfather a lot. Whenever I visit on the weekend, I had the chance to partake in the coffee groups with Taylor, my grandmother. They'd always invite me and introduce me to their friends. I left out if the coffee was at the country club, because for the rest of the day I'd probably end up hitting balls and practicing. If I was lucky enough, I could talk him into a game of golf. He'd let me drive the golf cart, and the lessons about etiquette continued as we scrambled our way through 18 holes. When I think about my grandfather and how what we remembered and what made him unique, my grandfather was honest, kind-hearted, big-hearted, yet these piercing blue eyes that were patient and non-judgmental. His smile, as it was talked about, he was well-respected, he was thorough in his decisions. He'll be remembered as a stoic man, approaching and diffusing situations in a calm manner, removing emotion that often clouds judgment when making decisions. Always be honest. At the end of the day, you have to look into the mirror and look at the person you are. This is more than a saying, but how we carry ourselves. When you look in the mirror, you're accountable. Your deficiencies and insecurities are front and center. And the bottom line was, if you did the best you could that day, and you gave it your all, that was all that mattered. He taught me to take the high road all the time. Don't lower yourself to other people's bad behavior. The judicial side of him probably brought out, to lie is the worst thing you can do. And still to this day, I'm a horrible liar. He taught me to be kind, and he was always a kind man. He taught me about forgiveness, which I still work on today. It takes a strong person to say they're sorry, but an even stronger person to forgive. And the weak can forgive, and forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. Finally, you would really want to thank each and every one of you for the contributions you made to his life and his family's lives. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Taylor and Jesse. Really well said. Thank you. Well, as a traditionalist, Ron had an appreciation for classical music. And this song that we're going to listen to, Taylor actually played on the piano at one of her recitals when she was, I believe, in high school. Was it high school, Taylor? So we're going to spend some time just in reflection, because this would be a song that Ron and Mariette would listen to often in their home. This is Claude Debussy Reverie. So I just invite you just to be silent in the moment of thoughts and listen to the music. Friends, I conclude our time of tributes by reading this memory that was collected by Ron's stepdaughter, Martine. These are Mariette's memories, Ron's wife for 40 years. What I will always remember is the fun times that we had on Christmas, which was often spent at the cottage. All those memories of the kids climbing a 10-foot ladder to decorate the tall tree, and Jesse and Taylor taking turns putting the star on top. Ron, being a traditionalist, respected all those traditions, like leaving a tray of cookies out for Santa, including a shot of brandy. Or making sure that everybody had crowns to wear on someone's birthday. The kids loved this as much as climbing on him when he read bedtime stories. Ron and I loved to take the kids to Drumheller and to be on the train that runs from Stettler with a teddy bear theme, which the kids just loved. He taught Taylor how to drive the boat, but not, of course, until she had her water vessel license. He always encouraged the kids to be learned in all aspects of their pursuits. Ron was, to us, a gentle oak tree. He was strong, reliable, and wise. He provided a shelter from the harshness of reality by instilling in us self-reliance, confidence, and a work ethic. He was a pillar of strength and full of wisdom to share with the kids. He was the epitome of a true gentleman. And he taught the grandkids how to be socialized as such. He was elegant, polite, loved to meet new people, and he always made a point to recall their names to make sure that they felt valued. It is said that your reputation precedes you. It enters a room before you do, and it stays with you after. Ron's reputation was of paramount importance to him, and he instilled that value in the kids. Be a good and a kind person. Allow other people to shine. We are all blessed to have him in our lives. For Mariette, the greatest gift was to be loved by Ron, as it was a blessing from God. The love they shared and the mutual respect and adoration they had for one another cannot be measured, and it is everlasting in our memory as his beloved Ron. So friends, we've remembered Ron with words, and now we're going to remember him through pictures. So if someone can dim the lights and watch the slides.
But I think that we would be most remiss this morning if we didn't step outside the usual format of this report and conclude with a very simple but very sincere public expression of condolences to Judge Ron Jacobson and his surviving son in the wake of that very tragic loss during this past weekend. I think I can feel pretty safe in saying that I'm not only speaking for myself and Wally this morning, but for every member of the management and staff of Lethbridge Broadcasting and for hundreds of others right across southern Alberta. Wally?
Thank you, and also on behalf of the members of the Bone Crushers hockey team, of which Ron was a member, our sympathies to Ron and the families.
Away I'm bound to go across the white Missouri. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to hear you. Oh, away you roll
am down, and oh, my soul so weary. When troubles come, and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. When I am on your shoulders, you raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
That was very good. Ronald was indeed a special and a good man. I don't know about you guys, but how about those Halloween costumes you put on? Very nice. That devil one was one of a kind, like full red face. Wow. I realized we had something in common. We both love the outdoors and love to fish. Jesse, you'll have to chat some fishing stories with you after. We have a couple of presentations here for John and for Mariette on behalf of our unit and really the Canadian Armed Forces. The first is a sword presentation. So as the Colonel Commandant of the Royal Canadian Artillery, Ron carried his sword during formal ceremonies and military events. Carrying a sword represented the commission that Ron held as an officer of Her Majesty the Queen. The sword is a symbol of one's authority to command. Ron had that authority. Ron donated his sword to the Lethbridge Military Museum, and today I present Colonel Jacobson's sword back to his son, John. John will receive the sword and then present the sword back to Captain Gressel, who's here today receiving the sword on behalf of the unit, the 20th Independent Field Battery. Ron's wish was to have the sword remain at the Lethbridge Military Museum, and it will. So John, it is with humility and respect, and with the gratitude of our unit, and really the Canadian Armed Forces, that I present you with your dad's sword in recognition of his service and his duty to our country. And I have a letter of condolences and appreciation which I will present to Mariette. Let me just read this. This is from the Brigadier General David Patterson, who is now the Colonel Commandant of the Royal Regiment of Canadian Artillery. Dear Mariette, it is with a heavy heart that I learned of the recent passing of Colonel Ron Jacobson, the 12th Colonel Commandant of the Royal Regiment of Canadian Artillery. His long service to the regiment, his community, and our nation is an example to us all. As a career-long Army reservist and the current Colonel Commandant, I can understand the demands placed on Colonel Jacobson when he graciously assumed the role of the symbolic head of our regimental family. Combining the demands of this post with those of an active civilian career as a very busy judge in Colonel Jacobson's case, it asks a lot of anyone. Colonel Jacobson responded admirably to the task, visiting units and training events across the country during his tenure. I recall him visiting my unit in Montreal as part of a tour of Quebec artillery units. The dedication to the regiment demonstrated by Colonel Jacobson is an example for me as I try to live out his legacy. Please know that the Royal Regiment of Canadian Artillery shares your sorrow at the loss of a great gunner and is ready to support you as much as we can. You be Brigadier General David Patterson. Well, friends, as we move towards the conclusion of our formal time together, after I read the obituary and met with the family, this passage of Scripture continued to come up in my mind. So I will read it for you and just make two brief comments about it. Here it is, Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 to 8 and verse 11. There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter and a time to gather, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. God has made everything beautiful in its time, and He has set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can understand what God has done from beginning to end. Friends, I often reflect on this passage when things don't go the way I had expected or hoped or wanted. When life throws a curveball at you, a cancer diagnosis, an unreconciled relationship, a a job loss, a personal failure, or as we are today, confronted with the death of somebody that we love. And I believe these verses put two things in front of us as we navigate life in the midst of loss. The first is hope, and the second is a question. Hope and a question. I want us to see verse 11. God has made everything beautiful in time, and no one can understand what he has done from beginning to end. See, this text paints a picture of what the Bible declares is hope. That God is not absent or passive, but indeed present and active, working things together for good and for our good. As this text says, there is greater purpose, there is bigger story, one that we can't possibly understand or explain, but it is good. And that's what life and hope looks like. Knowing that life isn't meaningless or purposeless, but that all things, all time, whether times of rejoicing, whether times of mourning, whether times of scattering, whether times of gathering, that all time is actually heading towards a beautiful direction and destination. I like this text because it doesn't say that all things happen for a reason. It doesn't say why things happen the way they do. It doesn't try and give answers to unanswerable questions. It just simply names what we all experience in life. And it makes this claim. God's leading us to something beautiful for a time. I can't help but look at Ron's life. Accomplishment, success, adventure, love, family, but also tragedy. Losing a wife and 2 kids. I just could not imagine the pain that he endured. And yet, life didn't end there for him. He married Mariette, and they have 40 years together. Ron's story wasn't always an easy one, but what I see, his story was a meaningful one, a purposeful one. His time made an impact. God moved Ron to a beautiful destination. And all of you represent his legacy today. What God can do in and through time. So my prayer for us today is that as we are confronted with death, we'd be confronted and comforted by hope. Because with God, better is always ahead of us. That's what the text says. Better is always ahead. Today, more than ever, our world needs hope. And I believe, as I think Ron believed, that indeed, God has put eternity on our hearts, meaning there's more in store. Better is ahead. Death is not the end. I will make things beautiful in time. That is the hope I give to you today. And the second thing I think this passage confronts us with is a question. What am I going to do with my time? See, death confronts us with a truth that we don't like, and we can avoid it, and we can spend our whole life not talking about it, and we can ignore it, wait up until it happens. But the reality is, we are all going to die. And when we face that truth, we must answer that one simple question that I believe this text poses to us. What are you going to do with your time? Ron's time to depart this world came, but as Ron taught us, and as this text teaches us, today is not a time to die, but indeed a time to live. Ron devoted himself to the service of others. I loved how the family described him. He was a person builder. He cared about justice and doing things right by people. This was clear in his career as a judge. He committed himself to community service, to serving his church, and to serving his country. If you met him, you know that you had value and importance because he took an interest in you. What was so evident to me was simply this: Ron didn't live for his sake, but for the sake of other people. And I think I could say what we're all thinking in the room: the world needs more people like Ron, who don't live for the sake of themselves, but for the sake of other people. One of my favorite passages in Scripture is Galatians 5, verse 6, and here's what it says: the only thing that matters in life is your faith expressing itself through love. The only thing that matters, you want to make your time count, here's what matters: faith and love. Love is all about what you do for other people. Ron made an impact in our lives because he loved people. And he made his life about people. And so today, my friends, as we are confronted with death, that indeed there is a time to be born and a time to die, I simply want to challenge you as you go from here: devote yourself not to the things, but indeed to the people in your life. Carry on Ron's legacy, because that indeed is what makes life and time count. I'd invite you to stand as the trumpet plays. One of Ron's famous lines was this: "When a Jacobson drinks, everyone drinks." Spoken like a true gunner. So with those words, please come and join us in the mess. This is indeed what Ron would have wanted us to do. So I close with this. As a member of the Royal Canadian Artillery, after a member fires their first round on one of these guns beside me, they become known as a gunner. And when on mission, gunners would wait to hear near the gun for their orders. Often they would wait near the gun for their orders. Often this spot would be a sheltered, comfortable place referred to as the stand easy. So at the conclusion of each of their fire missions, when the last round has been fired, the gunners would receive an order through the radio saying, "End of mission, stand easy." As per our RCA tradition, when a gunner dies, we say, "End of mission, stand easy," to signify that their earthly mission is complete, and through faith their stand easy has begun. So today we recognize that Ron's stand easy has begun, because today we aren't just reminded about death, but also about life. And so I commit Ron's spirit to Almighty God. And I ask that God will be merciful and show Ron grace. May God bless him, and may he rest in peace. I conclude with this gunner's prayer. And with the sound of distant thunder, the voice of God is calling. They have gone to join the regiment above. We remember the gunner fallen. Colonel Jacobson, end of mission. Stand easy.